Hello everyone, my name's Chloe and I'm one of Physics World's webinar moderators. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Enhancing SRS SBRT Accuracy with RTsafe QA Solutions, an Overall Experience, presented by Christopher Schneider, Medical Physicist and Adaptive Radiotherapy Technical Director from Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Christopher welcomes your questions, so please do send them through at any time by using the questions facility in your attendee control panel. We will answer as many as possible during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and any unanswered questions will be answered by email once the webinar is over. I will now hand over to Christopher.
Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Christopher Schneider, and I'm a medical physicist and the Adaptive Radiotherapy Technical Director here at Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Today I'm going to be discussing our experience using RTsafe QA solutions for SRS and SBRT. I have no conflicts of interest to declare, and the opinions presented today are my own. Mary Bird Perkins is a medium to large size cancer center, and we're spread out amongst 9 radiation therapy centers total. We're a freestanding, not-for-profit institution, and we employ 13 medical physicists. The majority of our physicists are based at our flagship location in Baton Rouge, but there is an increasing need to provide support for special procedures at our satellite locations. We also employ 4 physics residents and 1 medical physics assistant. We operate a fleet of 13 linear accelerators, all of which are used to varying degrees for SBRT. However, we currently do not provide LINAC-based SRS. Our stereotactic radiosurgery program is confined to our Gamma Knife Icon located at our Baton Rouge location. We also provide 8 brachytherapy services, including HDR and LDR, and we have a growing theranostics program. The newest service offered here at Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center is our MRI-guided online adaptive radiation therapy service. We treated our first patient on the Elekta Unity 1.5 Tesla MRI LINAC on December 11th of 2023. The number of unique patients in the first year was 167, and we're on pace to easily surpass this in year 2. The maximum number of patients we've treated in a single day on the MR LINAC is 14, and currently we average treatment of 8 patients per day. We've been able to limit the number of patients to about 8 patients per day on average by pushing more toward SBRT and scheduling patients on a cycle where some patients are treated Monday, Wednesday, Friday in their first week, followed by Tuesday, Thursday in the second week, or vice versa, in order to maximize the number of available treatment slots. We operate our MRI-guided online adaptive radiation therapy service currently with just 5 medical physicists, 4 therapy physicists who provide physics support at the machine during every treatment, and who are also responsible for all of the adaptive radiation therapy reference planning, machine and patient QA, supervision for patient simulations, and etc. We also have an imaging physicist on the service who is responsible for screening patients to ensure eligibility for the program, and also for helping us maximize the image quality by customizing our imaging protocols. The rest of the clinical team on the adaptive radiation therapy service here at Mary Bird Perkins consists of 3 radiation therapists credentialed to treat on the Unity, 1 adaptive RT nurse, our CT and MRI sim staff, as well as our physicians and their teams of registered nurses and medical assistants. Outside of adaptive radiation therapy, we've seen growth in our other radiation oncology offerings in recent years, particularly through the addition of more satellite locations, either through acquisition or partnering with existing institutions. Partnering with existing institutions presents unique challenges because of the disparate policies and procedures, workflows, and equipment that may be available. As an example, we have traditionally been an all-Elekta site when it comes to external beam radiation therapy, but we recently partnered with a facility that is equipped with Varian true beams. This led to immediate interest in expanding our stereotactic radiosurgery offerings to include LINAC-based SRS. In addition to the growth driven by adding facilities and treatment machines, as well as the increased frequency of SBRT and SRS treatments, the treatments themselves have also evolved in recent years, as we've seen an increase in treatments, non-isocentric treatments, particularly due to single ISO multi-target treatments. All of this has created the need to manage this growth responsibly and for our QA processes to evolve to meet these changing needs. And so we found that we have a need for extremely efficient and reliable means of auditing these new services and providing QA. Another challenge physicists face in designing and operating our QA programs is keeping up with evolving guidelines and guidance documents. I recently was lucky enough to serve as a co-author on the updated Medical Physics Practice Guideline 9B for SRS and SBRT, and doing so proved to be a great experience in that it allowed me to really examine our own QA procedures in detail to ensure that we are in full compliance with the latest recommendations. Overall, the updates to MPPG 9B are relatively small in number. However, I will discuss a couple of key changes that have been made in the upcoming slides. So one area that was an area of focus in the new MPPG 9B was to update and expand the discussion of single isocenter multi-target treatments. These types of treatments are becoming increasingly more common in external beam radiation therapy, including for things like lung SBRT, as well as LINAC-based SRS. This is of concern as treatments, the treatment of targets that are away from isocenter can amplify some sources of error. For example, gantry angle errors for isocentric versus non-isocentric treatments. In an isocentric treatment, small errors in the gantry angle may have only a small impact on dosimetry because the target being at isocenter is still centered. However, when treating targets not located at isocenter, small errors in gantry angle, for instance, can lead to larger dosimetric errors. This phenomenon of decreased spatial accuracy for targets with increasing distance from isocenter is documented in the literature. For example, in this 2017 paper by Ezel et al. In this figure from that paper, you can see for both a Varian IX with exact track and a true beam with cone beam CT, a modest increase in the spatial error for targets with increasing distance from isocenter. This might be accounted for by introducing additional margins in the PTV for off-center targets, but this also comes with some drawbacks, as increasing the irradiated volume can result in an increased risk of radiation-induced side effects. So this is an increasingly important topic to consider in the clinic. With the introduction of our MR Linac, we've seen a sharp increase in the number of non-isocentric SBRT treatments performed here at Mary Bird Perkins. MRI guidance is, of course, extremely beneficial in adaptive radiation therapy. MRI provides much better images of much better soft tissue contrast for visualizing targets and organs at risk. And this can allow us to shrink margins compared to treatment on conventional machines. However, one limitation that we face is that the couch is limited to longitudinal movements, so there's no ability to make shifts left or right or up or down. Because of this, unless a target happens to naturally fall at isocenter in the treatment geometry, by default, nearly all treatments take place at some distance off center. Pictured on this slide is a rather extreme example of a case of a small abdominal wall lesion. As you can see, the lesion was very far off axis, and there are loops of bowel quite close to the target. The location of these bowel loops, changed day to day relative to the target, and furthermore, this target would not have been visible with conventional cone beam CT imaging. So this would seem to be the perfect case for MRI-guided adaptive radiation therapy. But as you can see, even though we did set this patient up as far to one side of the table as clearance would allow, even with this setup, the lesion was more than 13 centimeters off axis. In addition to the increased emphasis on single isocenter multi-target techniques, another relevant update in MPPG 9B is a modification to the recommendation for end-to-end testing. End-to-end testing is, of course, an extremely important tool in commissioning or evaluating an SRS or SBRT program. And MPPG 9A recommended an end-to-end dose evaluation using the SRS frame and or IGRT system with a criteria of plus or minus 5% absolute dose to a point. MPPG 9B updates this recommendation to include gamma index analysis of the dose distribution with 3% dose agreement criteria and 1 millimeter distance to agreement criteria, with a passing requirement of greater than 90% of points passing. Here at Mary Bird Perkins, in addition to doing this gamma index analysis test with a diode array and a QA plan, we made the decision that we really wanted to include also gamma index analysis with film in an anthropomorphic phantom, and additionally that we wanted to include a 3D gamma index analysis using a 3D dosimeter such as gel dosimetry. Analysis using a 3D dosimeter such as gel dosimetry. Analysis using a 3D dosimeter such as gel dosimetry. At this point, I'll switch gears and start discussing some of the products and services offered by RTsafe that we have begun to utilize here at Mary Bird Perkins, starting with the prime phantom. Analysis using a 3D dosimeter such as gel dosimetry. At this point, I'll switch gears and start discussing some of the products and services offered by RTsafe that we have begun to utilize here at Mary Bird Perkins, starting with the prime phantom analysis using a 3D dosimeter such as gel dosimetry. At this point, I'll switch gears and start discussing some of the products and services offered by RTsafe that we have begun to utilize here at Mary Bird Perkins, starting with the prime phantom. The prime phantom is an anthropomorphic 3D printed head phantom that includes materials to mimic both bone and soft tissue. The phantom provides realistic bone and soft tissue contrast for imaging on both MRI or CT, and it is portable and easy to use for setup, simulation, and delivery. That is particularly important since a good end-to-end test will, of course, involve each step of the chain, of patient care being performed by the team members that would normally perform that duty. So, for instance, we would have our CT techs, set up the phantom at CT sim and create immobilization. Here we would use a mold care cushion and a thermoplastic mask for created for the phantom by our CT techs, and then we would have physics and or dosimetry, as the case may be, depending on the type of treatment being QA'd, take those images and perform a plan in the treatment planning system. We would transport the phantom to the treatment machine, have the radiation therapists be the one to set up and position the phantom, and then finally deliver and measure the results. There are multiple inserts that can be used with the phantom that allow for various dosimetry options. So there are inserts for ion chambers, diodes, OSLTs, film, and gel dosimeters. The SBRT phantom is an anthropomorphic 3D printed phantom that simulates the anatomy of an abdominal case, again based on a scan of a real person and then 3D printed, and again including bone and tissue equivalent materials. Again, with various inserts available, ion chamber, film, OSLD, or gel dosimetry measurements can be taken in the area representing the lung, and there's also a channel in the spine for measuring dose there. The phantom can be used to simulate the full online adaptive workflow on an MR LINAC. For instance, MD Anderson, I know, used this phantom when commissioning their spine SBRT program for the Elekta Unity. And of course, it can also be used for end-to-end testing of conventional LINACs with X-ray based IGRT, such as cone beam CT. RTsafe offers a la carte remote dosimetry services with ready-to-use dosimeters. So, as you saw on the previous slides describing the phantoms, there are inserts for OSLDs, film and gel dosimetry. So point dosimetry is performed with OSLs that are calibrated for absolute dosimetry. 2D dosimetry can be performed with EBT4 films that are calibrated for absolute dosimetry. And then 3D dosimetry is limited to relative dosimetry with the polymer gel formulation. The OSLD and film dosimeters are received in the mail for exposure and then returned via mail for analysis. And the gel inserts arrive via mail for exposure and then can be imaged at your facility using an MRI, and then the data sets are sent back to RTsafe for analysis. SRS remote auditing service is sort of a one-stop shop for end-to-end testing of intracranial SRS service. This service provides an independent evaluation of the dosimetry, plan quality, and the dose accuracy for brain SRS procedures. It makes use of all of the remote dosimetry services described previously, including the film, OSLDs, and gel dosimeters. As part of this service, the user receives a multi-target RT structure set, and then is challenged to achieve a specific level of accuracy for the required SRS treatment objectives. So they send you a DICOM with a structure set that you use for creating and delivering an SRS plan. So as an example of how we have used this service here at Mary Bird Perkins, as I mentioned, we currently do not perform LINAC-based SRS. Our SRS program is limited to our Gamma Knife icon. However, one of the satellite sites that we recently partnered with is equipped with a Therian TrueBeam that has HyperArt capabilities. This particular machine was installed in 2016, and we took over physics responsibility for it in last year in 2024. We are not currently using this machine for SRS. However, since it's now a part of our arsenal, there was, of course, interest in seeing if we could offload some of our SRS cases to be treated with LINAC-based SRS. We found the workflow for utilizing the service to be, quite streamlined and user-friendly. First, you receive the reference data set DICOMs that you download and would import into your treatment planning system. Through the mail, you receive the phantom and the inserts for the various dosimeters. After this, you would simply execute your SRS or SBRT in-house workflows from simulation to planning to setup to treatment. Once complete, you upload the plan data to RTsafe and mail back the dosimeters, after which RTsafe will perform the analysis and you will receive your dosimetry report letting you know how you did. Here are some examples of the prime phantom scanned with the various dosimeter inserts. So the top row, A, shows the scans in various slices in various orientations of the phantom with the OSL inserts. You can see that there are multiple OSLDs included in the insert that extend out from a central point in multiple directions. Then the second row, B, shows the film insert, and in this case it's inserted in the coronal direction, so you would be measuring dose in the coronal plane. And then in row C, the same film insert, but inserted to measure dosimetry in the sagittal plane. And then finally, row D shows the gel insert that's used for the relative 3D dosimetry. Here's an example of the treatment optimization objectives and goals that you receive. So the structure set, in this case, consisted of 3 PTVs, and the coverage metric was to deliver 2700 centigrade in 3 fractions to 100% of the volume of each of the PTVs, and the quality metrics that we were assigned to achieve, including conformality index from RTOG and Paddock, and then the gradient index for each of the PTVs. And then here we see some of the results from our dosimetry report. First showing the a recap of the parameters of the plan that we created, and then the OSLD and analysis results. And as you can see, we found that there was very good agreement between the treatment planning system and the OSLD measurements. In addition to the individual point dose results, the report includes additional analysis such as profiles, such as the one shown here, showing the treatment planning system calculated dose plotted alongside the measured doses from the OSLDs. And as you can see, the values agree to within the stated uncertainty. Here we see examples of the film dosimetry results in the coronal orientation. So this shows profiles for the coronal film, a right-left profile and a supinf profile plotted, the TPS measured TPS calculation versus the film measurement results. And similar profiles were included for all 3 PTVs, and then also for the sagittal film. Here we see example results of the relative 3D gel dosimetry. So the dose readout is performed 24 hours after irradiation using a 1.5 Tesla MRI. RTsafe can provide you with the sequence needed to read out the dose gel. It's a multi-echo T2 weighted pulse sequence. The analysis of this of the gel provides relative dosimetry, so you will receive relative dose profiles and 3D gamma index analysis and passing rates, as well as geometric offsets for each target, which is quite helpful. The images depicted here on this slide show the dose distribution as read out from the gel on the top, the dose distribution from the treatment planning system alone on the bottom, and then an overlay, 50-50 blending of the two in the center as a way of visualizing the spatial agreement between the measured and calculated dose distributions. And then also from the gel dosimeter, the report includes the offset between the dose cloud as measured by the gel dosimeter for each of the 3 targets, and the planned dose distribution for each of the 3 targets, right? So here in this table, we see in the first column just the distance of the centroid of each of the PTVs from isocenter, and then the X, Y, and Z offsets in the next 3 columns of the measured dose distributions versus the planned dose distributions, and then finally the total geometric offset and the corresponding uncertainty. We've also completed a gel dosimetry study on our MR-Linac. We've implemented this as part of our annual QA for the MRI-Linac. In this case, instead of using a structure set provided by RTsafe, we wanted to do a test where we just used a target of our own, a mock target that we created ourselves. In this case, an approximately 2 centimeter cylindrical target, and a simple plan, 25 gray and a single fraction with a conformity index of 1.1. Here, this screenshot from Online Monaco shows the MRI of the day used for the adaptation as part of this, end-to-end study, and the bottom left here shows the DRR with the dose overlaid, and then that's the previous scans showed the gel dosimetry insert, but we also to get an absolute dose measurement used our MR compatible ion chamber in the ion chamber insert for the prime phantom. And this is just a screenshot showing the result, an image from the 2D cine scan that would be used for motion monitoring on a patient. Here, just another slide showing a checkerboard overlay of the CT scan and the MRI of the day. And then here we see the gel dosimetry overlay results as from before. So there are 2 sets of results shown here. Again, for both of these, the top row of images shows just the MRI, the dose from measured by the gel as read out on the MRI. The bottom shows the dose from the treatment planning system for comparison, and then in the center you see a 50-50 blending of the 2 dose sets. The report includes 2 sets of results for this test. On the left, you see an example with the window level set so that only the high dose region is visible, just to really show the boundaries of the high dose region and how well those are geometrically aligned. And then on the right, the window leveling is set so that you can see the entrance and exit dose from the beams. And so, as you can see, for the gel dosimetry, we also the report also provides profiles showing the treatment planning system calculated dose versus the RTsafe gel dosimetry calculated dose. The report also included 2D gamma index maps for various orientations in the gel. And then also 3D gamma index test passing rates, comparing the gel measured dose and the treatment planning system calculated dose. You can see that they include gamma index passing rates for 3 different sets of gamma index analysis criteria. Those being 2 millimeter distance to agreement and 5% dose difference, 1 millimeter 5%, and 2 millimeter 3%. So thank you very much for listening to me share our experience with this service, where we do think that it's becoming a valuable part of our SRS and SBRT QA. Across the board, SRS and SBRT treatments are becoming increasingly common, and particularly non-isocentric and single isocenter multi-target techniques are becoming increasingly common. And so as physicists, we are always trying to improve our quality assurance methods to make sure that we're adequately testing for these special procedures. So one of the reasons that we in particular are making use of the RTsafe service is that as we've sort of rapidly added new treatment modalities and inherited equipment from acquired or sites that we've partnered with, we need tools to make this QA manageable, and tools that are applicable to all these different treatment machines and manufacturers and types. And furthermore, as we've sort of revamped our quality assurance program in light of the guidance documents available to make sure that we're completely in compliance, we are intending to utilize the RTsafe dosimetry services for regular end-to-end testing as part of the annual QA for our machines that deliver SBRT and or SRS treatments, and also planning to use these services to help us systematically determine things like how much extra uncertainty we expect for non-isocentric treatments, and to determine how much additional margin may be required for cases like that. And so with that, I'll say thank you again to RTsafe for inviting me to discuss our experiences here at Marybird, and thank you to the IOP for hosting us and hosting this webinar, and thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll take any questions.
Great, thanks for that excellent presentation, Chris. So just before we start answering some audience questions, I'm just going to run a quick poll from the audience. So if you could please select one of the answers from the question you'll see on your screen. And the question is, have you or your clinic used any RTsafe QA solutions, phantoms or remote services? The potential answers are yes, we've used their phantom and remote dosimetry services. Not yet, but we are considering it. Or no, we use in-house tools or other vendors. If you can please select one of the answers on your screen, we will leave the poll open for a few more seconds for you. So once again, the question is, have you or your clinic used any of RTsafe's QA solutions, phantoms, or remote services? Yes, we've used their phantom and remote dosimetry services. Not yet, but we are considering it. Or no, we use in-house tools or other vendors. So we'll just give you a few more seconds. Okay, thank you so much for voting on that. So if we can welcome Chris back to answer some audience questions. We've had a few come through. So Chris, the first question we have is, can more than one ion chambers be placed in specific depths within the insert of the prime phantom?
Oh, yes, certainly. So, for the different phantoms, you can insert as many ion chambers at a time as there are channels, and then so for the SBRT phantom has multiple channels, right? So you can measure dose in the spinal column or in the target, and for different depths, so certainly if you insert the ion chamber all the way to the end of the channel, that's going to be a very reproducible setup every time. But if you want to place the ion chamber at a different depth or a different position along the channel, you could, make a contour of that. You could scan it in that position and then contour that in your treatment planning system, and then on your whatever IGRT you use to set up the phantom at your treatment machine, you would just use that contour to make sure that you have the ion chamber at the correct depth, or the depth that you desired.
Great, thank you. So our next question is, I have no access to an MR unit. Can I still use RTsafe's gel-filled products?
Yes. So we opted to, as I described in the talk, we opted to scan the gel ourselves on our MR sim, but so I haven't gone through the process of sending the gel to be read by RTsafe, but I believe, as with the other dosimeters, you are able to, the film in the OSLDs, we mailed back to RTsafe for them to measure so that we didn't have to deal with, making sure that our scanner was calibrated for film, for instance. But I think the gel dosimeters you can also send back to RTsafe for them to scan and analyze.
Great, thank you. So the next question we have here is, what are the uncertainties of the OSL EBT4 film and gel used in the dosimetry against which measurements are being undertaken?
Yes. Okay, the quoted uncertainties, OSLDs have a 5% dosimetric accuracy. So that's reflected in, that the gamma passing criteria typically used for gel dosimetry, like a 3D gamma index for gel dosimetry is a little different than what you might use if you were using film or a diode array. But so yeah, about 5% for OSLDs, 5% for 3 to 5% for gel, and I believe 3% for the film. The gel, the spatial accuracy of the gel, though, is very, very good spatial accuracy, on the order of 1 millimeter.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question is, what detector do you use for dose measurements while performing motion monitoring with the MR-Linac?
So we you can certainly run the motion monitoring scan while you're using any of the passive detectors like OSLDs or film or gel. It the you know Depending on, I'm not familiar with for instance the ViewRay and how imaging while the beam is on affects that system, but for the Unity, we do motion scans while we treat patients, and we do also additional 3D MRIs while in the middle of treating patients. And so we do occasionally, just I think out of to be as thorough as possible, we will do QA measurements while performing scans, but it on the Unity it doesn't really make a difference. So I had an example in my talk of our MR compatible. It's the SemiFlex 3D MR compatible version of the ion chamber that we used, but we wouldn't typically image while doing an ion chamber measurement. If that answers the question, I think.
Great, thank you. Are there any restrictions regarding the position and size of the targets for Success RS?
So Success RS being sort of like a fully independent like auditing of your process, RTsafe sent us the target structure set including an OAR, and also provided us with the planning objectives, right? The idea being that it's sort of testing your process using their workflow and their realistic, clinically relevant and realistic planning criteria that they've developed for that service. I've found the RTsafe team to be very receptive and responsive. So certainly, if you're interested in anything, doing anything differently, you could reach out to them. And but as we've used the Success RS program, and I believe as it's sort of designed, is that they provide you with the structure sets and the planning criteria. And right, ours consisted of three targets of varying sizes, an organ at risk that we had to respect the dose constraints for, and then also the conformity index criteria and so on. However, for the the results are presented for the Unity, our MR-Linac study, we created that target ourselves, and no, I don't believe there's any real restrictions. The gel, if you're talking about gel dosimetry, like we were, the only thing is that the gel insert covers a certain, you would want the target or the point that you were measuring dose to be located within the gel insert, and not outside of it.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, please feel free to send in your questions. We've got time for a few more. So our next one is the phantom made from foam, and is it soft tissue equivalent material? Is the bone ceramic or foam?
So the phantoms are made of bone and tissue equivalent materials. I don't know the specifics of the off the top of my head, but it's the bone I know it's a powder that they use that mold into the bone. No, I don't believe that any of it is foam.
Okay, thank you. Does Success RS meet national or international auditing standards for SRS QA?
Yes, and the report is very helpful. It includes in addition to the results that they present, they present you the quantitative results. They also it's a very thorough and detailed report that they provide that includes qualitative description of the process, and also lets you know. I believe they reference RTOG standards as well as MPPG. So the report we got was before, so it referenced MPPG 9A, and then presumably, I mean, MPPG 9B was just published, but so presumably in the future they will reference that document.
Okay, thank you. Can we use RTsafe's remote QA service for new machine commissioning or annual QA?
Yes, we certainly, anytime, anything that you would use, any situation that calls for end-to-end testing, I think the service is great for, and that's what we intend to use it for. Whereas we intend to use it in the commissioning process for any new machines that we bring online, and then we are rolling it out. We still have to, with the number of satellite sites that we have to get all of our physicists across our enterprise on board. But we're planning to use it also regularly for our annual QA, and that will help meet the annual QA requirements specified in the medical physics practice guideline.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to calibrate anything on site, or is everything handled by RTsafe?
Everything is handled by RTsafe. That's really, one of the things that really makes the service such a big time saver for us. That makes it so easy to use is that the dosimeters are all calibrated, and we just take the Phantom and run it through our SRS or SBRT procedures from start to finish, expose the dosimeters, and then send everything back to RTsafe to be read out. So the films are marked and identifiable. So there's really everything set up so there's really only one way the film will go into the film insert, and then you have the freedom to put the film insert in to measure different planes. But it's all they provide instructions, and of course they're there to help, but everything was sort of pretty self-explanatory how everything fits together to set up for the measurements.
All right. I think we've got just another question here. Okay, so how well are the air bubbles controlled in soft tissue? I am guessing there will be a few in there.
We didn't really see any issues with air bubbles being formed during our measurements, and I think as long as we were careful to set up the Phantom properly, we didn't have any issues like that.
Great. All right. So I think that's actually all the questions that we have for today. If you do have any further questions, we can follow up with you after the webinar. If you would like to watch this webinar again or recommend it to a colleague, it will be available shortly on physicsworld.com. Just click on the audio and video tab and go to webinars. On behalf of Christopher and RTsafe, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to you, Christopher, for your excellent presentation. And we'll call this the end of the webinar, and please do enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you so much.
Thank you.